Hey everybody, it's Jason Sloan here with Furtado Law Solutions, and we're going to be interviewing Sean Overton, the president and founder of Accruvia. How's it going today, Sean?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little warm, but we'll be cooling down pretty soon. So tell us your story. Tell us about your past and how you got this going.
Mine is long and convoluted. Even though I'm a white guy from suburban Texas, I majored in Arabic in college. And that took me on a long detour around the Middle East when I was single and young, and I knew that I could get away with it before I got married. And I was correct. There's no chance I will ever get my wife to go on future Middle East travels. So I came home and I did some study abroad and living abroad all across the Middle East, and that got me my first job as a Forex broker. And you cannot make my career path up. So I studied Arabic. That got me a job in finance, which was like day trading currencies, kind of like stocks.
Mm-hmm.
Then I led sales efforts for that, but I was a broker trying to make 100 phone calls a day and day trade at the same time. Not recommended. It's a horrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me into programming and wanting to automate everything. And so I eventually left that job and learned how to program. And we've gone through a couple of different iterations, but it led to me starting a programming company. And it all is because I'm a white guy that speaks Arabic, which makes no sense.
Okay, now that we're all thoroughly confused.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is it that you could do at Accruvia?
At Accruvia, we do three things. We do merchant services, which is credit card processing. The main things we do are twofold. We do custom software. So for businesses that are trying to hook two systems together and they need them to talk and there's not a native plugin, we write those. And then
like an API?
Exactly. We connect APIs, and I try to avoid using the tech speak because usually as soon as API or any of the alphabet soup comes out, people have a hard time connecting with what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you're doing data entry or you want two systems to talk to each other, we write the software that connects it. But the main thing with Accruvia is our cloud platform, Accruvia Cloud, and it's designed for the construction industry for contractors that have a lot of subcontractors and want to organize all their bills in one spot. This is a really easy way to do it and keep track of who you owe and how much you owe.
Okay, cool. And do you got a demo for us, or you got any other thoughts before the demo?
No, I mean, I think the demo is probably an easy place to start, and it's really not a complicated piece of software. So I think if we take a look at it, it'll make it clear. So this demo that I have up is for a construction supplier that we work with called Silver Creek Materials, and this is the enterprise version. So they've branded everything and made it their color scheme. But when I log in, I think the thing that's most relevant to your audience is what I mentioned with bills. So it's in this area where you basically just have a big list of I owe Billy the painter and Jose the carpenter and Timmy the HVAC guy, and keeping all your bills in one spot so that you have a list. The way I know a lot of contractors run their businesses now is assuming that they're at any kind of scale, it happens over email. So you have a giant email list. Sometimes you forget to unmark the email as read, so you lose track of it, or you put it in the wrong folder and you forget to pay it. So our idea here is that when you have suppliers, some of them you have leverage over and some of them you don't. So for example, if you're doing tile work, you do not have leverage over the tile shop. They're going to invoice you the same way that they do all the time. But with your suppliers that are one-man bands, or they're running a roofing crew and it's the same 5 to 10 guys every time, you do have leverage because you send them a lot of business, and you can say, I'm only going to pay you if you invoice me this certain way. It's a condition of doing business. And for those guys, that it makes it a lot easier to keep track of those invoices. So if like somebody's a residential general contractor and they're keeping track of 20 different subs, they're keeping track of roofers and framers and HVAC and electricians and plumbers, and the list just goes on and on and on.
Mhm.
Well, that gets complicated in a hurry. And so because they send those guys business over and over and over again, you can say, as a condition of doing business, invoice me this way. And it's super easy for them to create the invoice. It's free to them. And all they got to do, and it's actually free to the construction companies likely to use it too. They can generate an invoice, select the customer, go through all the details, add the line items, and it goes right to you.
Cool. So a lot of the crews work with multiple contractors. So if they get used to this, they could be telling the other guys about it and say, hey, we're using this and it's actually working really good. You guys want to look at this, you know?
Exactly. And for a company, once you hit a certain scale, and I think for most businesses, it's probably when you're doing at least $500,000 in sales, but probably more like $1 million or $2 million. You're starting to run into the point where the owner is not managing all the bills, and you might want to go through some kind of approval process.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the key features that we have, well, there's two key features. One is that if you start building that network of suppliers to invoice you on Accruvia, number one, you can go to the integration and hook it into QuickBooks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important that businesses consider not using email for the reasons that we talked about, that things get lost. But if you want to grow into using an approval system and have everything go into QuickBooks, the setup is simple, especially if you're using QuickBooks Online. It literally will connect in 10 seconds. And anytime you have a new invoice, and only when you approve the bill. So let's say Jose, the painter, puts an invoice in here for me to pay, which for me is a bill. I'll have the opportunity to select from a drop-down menu whether I want to assign it to one of my employees and put that into a workflow. But only when the bill is approved, it automatically syncs it into QuickBooks. So that way it keeps your accounting clean as well. Here you have a list of everybody that claims you owe them money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you follow this process, everything in QuickBooks is something that somebody in your business says, yes, that's a legitimate bill. We actually owe that. So it's a nice screen to keep the accounting clean, keep it organized. And then it also avoids data entry where, like using my example of Jose the painter, there's no reason to retype his bill when he had to type it electronically anyway. So it's just, and that's not a big deal if you do one bill, but if you got 30 bills, well,
Yep.
that starts to add up to quite a bit of time. And I know a lot of GCs that are using this, that they'll save about half a day, the person that's managing the bills, because they've got to set aside that block of time to do everything. And it cuts the time requirements down to 20, 30 minutes. Everybody's paid, they save time. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay. And then you guys do payment processing. Does that include ACHs or is it just credit cards, or how does that work?
So you can customize it. So we offer native credit card processing, native ACH payments. But if you want to accept another form of payment, you can specify that within your account receivable payment methods. So if I wanted to, for example, say I accept Bitcoin, I could type in Bitcoin, type in my crazy wallet address, blah, gobbledygook, and save it. And then this way, whenever a customer wants to figure out how to pay, they've got the list of payment options on the invoice.
Is your system synced with financing, or is that something maybe in the
You mean
future?
like factoring?
No, as far as like, so say a homeowner, all of a sudden they lose their job or something, but they can get a financing and then just run it directly through their system.
No, it's not set up for financing.
Okay. All right. And then one of the things I was thinking of is, what if the, say ABC Supply, obviously that's a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation owned by one woman, but what if it was set up so that way there was an email system through your system, so that way it could at least put the bills in,
Yeah, actually that's a service that we're planning to offer relatively soon, where you set up a dedicated email address. And whenever there's an attachment, it will go through a data entry process with some of our team that's offshore to manually enter that stuff. There's a lot of hype around artificial intelligence, and AI has some amazing advantages, but I know from working with a lot of businesses that have used OCR, which is optical character recognition, and over relying on AI, it's extremely error prone. But yeah, we're planning to offer this as a manual data entry service because there's no reason to pay an American on staff to just sit there and type. There's no special skill required to copy an invoice and put it into another format.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's part of our interest in working with construction companies is if you get somebody to invoice you over Accruvia, then that's going to be totally free, always will be. But if you want to, for us, we want to get to the point where it makes sense to offer that bill entry service because it's a pain point. It's a waste of time. It's inefficient, and we're going to be able to do it cheaper than any standard construction company.
Exactly. That's kind of like when you outsource your payroll because it costs you less than takes you to do the stuff and everything like that too.
Yeah, and like you're running construction company. The last thing you need to get caught up in is all these dumb details that like it's just their time sucks. They're not generating revenue for you.
Yeah, and what's funny is a lot of this stuff feels true to me because of like 2017 we were crazy busy, and I didn't have time to look at every invoice. So then it was like, you have your girl in the office doing it, and she does what she can. She's looking at how many squares you ordered, and but sometimes they're putting something, and it's like this weird thing or whatever, or they're charging more than they typically do, and they don't tell you, and all that. And it's like, so I can totally see this. Like I had to do auditing, and I'd go back to the cruise, and the next job I'd be like, dude, you screwed me on these 5 jobs. You owe me $1,000.
Yep.
It's coming off.
And that's what happens if you're not watching, unfortunately, which is that's the advantage of having an approval process.
Exactly.
And cutting, even though it's hard to get excited about not having to type one bill, but if you're typing 50 of them, that time starts to really matter.
Exactly. So is there anybody you don't work with and how do you make money? Like, you just said the service is free until you do something else. I mean, obviously the programming you get some money off of, but how do you make money? I mean, probably the merchant you make a little bit, No,
actually, we make all of our money on processing. So it's on ACH payments and credit cards. So for construction companies, we're not going to make any money. The value to us is building a network. Our target customer for credit card processing is a construction supply company, and like Silver Creek Materials I put up here on the screen. They sell utility sand. They sell a bunch of other stuff, but fundamentally they're a sand miner, and most of their customers are construction companies. And that's where those are the people that eventually we want to get on the platform that make all of the money and that make building this network worthwhile for us. And that's why we can offer it for free to end construction companies, is that we want to get so many of these transactions, these business to business transactions happening across our network as possible. That's really our growth strategy. I think it's silly that email does everything. Email does communication, it does payments, it does a million different things it was never intended to do. So let's get email back to what it's good at, and if we got a better way to do things, let's do it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that completely. Okay, let me put up your information real quick. Anything else that you got before we close out here, senor?
Hey, you really are settling into Mexico. No, I mean, I think that's a pretty good overview of what your audience is likely to find interesting for Accruvia. It's really just if you're spending more time than you think you should tracking bills, or you're losing bills, this is an easy win. It's free, so that friction point should be gone, and it takes 2 minutes to sign up, and you can do that on our website.
All right, great. So if you want to get a hold of Sean and his people and check everything out, all the info's below, accruvia.com. Phone number is 469-231-1219. and soverton at accruvia.com, and go to their page and like it at facebook.com/Accruvia.
That's it.
And if you need help with your supplements or estimates, give us a call or email. I'm at 720-296-6618, and the email is jason@furtadolaw.solutions, not .com. All right. Sean.
Thank you.